Hi, everybody. It's Daniela Rabbani, the host of the Mom Curious podcast. I'm here with Neeti Nerula. She's a creator on the Melissa Wood Health app. I don't know if you've been working out with her, but now is your chance to start at the very least. She's really a very special person. You have 2 kids.
Yes.
And you're also a writer. I love your writing on
dabble.
Instagram and at Yoga Journal.
Yes.
I was just telling Neeti that it's a funny thing to be in relationship with a person who's on your screen in your home. And it's like, I'm a fan of yours. That's for sure. But also it's a more intimate experience. It's like, it feels like you know me, like you're on the inside of my body, that you're moving with me. And I was just excited to get to know you. Like, you do share about yourself a little bit. But
yes. I think that dynamic of, the teacher relationship, a lot of times I know from even my own teachers when I go to their class and they say something and it feels like they're talking directly to me, like they said what was in my head. It creates this like relationship where you feel like you know the teacher and the teacher knows you.
And on some level they do, because we're all human. And
exactly.
We all have bodies.
And whatever I'm saying because it's me. It's a part of me, right? So there is that element, but then there's like this gap of like, we actually don't know each other, right? Like we actually haven't, sat together or shared space, but it's like we shared space in a different way and we know each other. It's weird. It's a weird thing, but it's also a beautiful thing.
It is a really beautiful thing. Also because, people are mostly the same. I think, you know what I mean? Like
humans.
we all have mornings and we all have hips and like, we all have dreams and
feelings.
At least in this space, we all have a curiosity around motherhood. Maybe some of us are mothers,
right?
Ourselves. There are a lot of things. I mean, we live in this world, so if you're pulling on themes of, the current events, we're all here together.
Yep.
Yeah. Even if, the virtual space is weird because I feel like it's not as intimate, and on some ways it's more.
Exactly. Yes. Because I think when you're in your own space and you're practicing, there's a guard that you might have in a studio space that's sort of down, right? You might feel things more deeply, especially in like something like a slower practice, like a meditation practice or a yin practice. You just have access to, I think, a deeper level, a deeper connection if you truly like create space for it. Whereas I think sometimes in a studio, we can't help but be a little bit more guarded because we have strangers around us.
Right.
And then there's the familiar stranger, which actually sometimes helps us like almost get more into the practice because you're in unison and there's an energy in the room.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a fan of both. Like, I think the ideal is to really have a practice you can do at home, but then a space you can go to as well. I think both are important.
And you practice in the morning. I mean,
yes.
I see it on your Instagram.
Yes.
You practice by yourself, which is a sort of third prong.
Yes. Yeah. Entirely by myself. Which, I think once I became a teacher, even once I became a teacher, I still was, in the studio every morning taking a class before I taught because I found it so important to practice. It was really after my son was born and I couldn't go to those morning classes anymore. I had to find a new way to keep my practice going, and I slowly trained myself to wake before he woke up.
Oh my God, that sounds awful.
Yeah, it was very hard. And it's all because of my partner, my husband. He's up really early for work, but he really helped me. Like, he'll drag me out of bed to get me to my mat because he knows what it does for me and what it does for us. Like, he's like, please meditate, right? Well, like, yes. He wants me to be.
I couldn't relate more.
So he knows it's like in his best interest to keep me committed and showing up every day. But if it wasn't for him, I really wouldn't have this practice, because I would just lay there like half awake listening to him shower and get ready. And that's where I even started practicing in the morning, because I was like, what am I doing with my time here?
Exactly. I'm awake anyway. It's like not really restful.
Yeah.
What time do you wake up?
Gosh. So I aim to wake up at like 5:30.
Neeti. Oh
but it's
God.
usually like a little bit, like I'm awake and then I'm laying there and then I'm I'm out of bed by like 5:45.
And how long is the practice?
Okay, so I'll give you the ideal and then I'll give you like sometimes.
I mean, the thing is, you are a yoga instructor. This is your job.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
Like, do I want to do it? Yeah, but you know, it's good to know that like you take this seriously.
Oh
like,
yeah, I take it so seriously, but it's also like I'll get to the part where I think I have to let go a little bit too, but you know, I wake up, I get to my mat by like 6:15, and I have like a whole lemon water thing and all this stuff that has to happen first. I become like such a creature of habit. But then, you know, I start with meditation and breath work, and that's about 20 minutes. And then I aim for like 20 to 30 minutes of asana, the physical practice of yoga. A lot of times, like a truncated version of that happens. A lot of times it's just the meditation. That's what I prioritize over movement, because that is what has truly like transformed me, is the meditation part. Because I think the movement, it's so important. That was my gateway to yoga. But I've realized stillness is what I need, because the quiet is where I learned to sit with like all the discomfort in my life. And movement for a while was helping me escape it, like moving from thing to thing. And it was just another reiteration of the I don't want to say chaos, because when I'm moving on my mat, it's not chaos. And I hope when I'm teaching, it's not chaos.
It's not.
But, you know, it was just another way to sort of distract. But I think all of that movement led me to, you know, that final rest, the Shavasana, time and again. And I learned to be with stillness there. And then, you know, opened myself up to more and more stillness, which is hard.
I always thought that yoga was meant to prepare you for meditation. But I love the idea that the yoga was years of leading you to the meditation mat.
Yeah.
And it's true that it's like it takes time, and time sort of manifests in different ways. You
Absolutely.
know, there's that 20 minutes in the morning, but there's also our whole lives are preparing us for really the Shavasana. I mean, that's corpse pose. And we should be moving. We should be creating. We should be flowing.
But it's an acceptance of the stillness that ultimately, you know, will come. You know, I've had a lot of death in my life, and I know that there's so many people, like we all fear. I think it's hard not to fear. Oh gosh, we're getting heavy.
We're never not getting heavy.
Yeah.
Is that cool with you? And if you don't want to,
no,
we don't have to.
This is who I am. Like I cannot have, like, if I'm going to sit down with someone, I'm going to go there. Like I'm going to go, I can't do surface level conversations anymore. And it's really changed in the past, I think since the pandemic. Like I just really don't want to make small talk. Like I just, you know, I just don't. Really I'm like, know. let's just go.
I mean, this is so important, because you say that the way we move on the mat is the way we move through life. And part of life is death.
Right. Yeah. And so I think being with, you know, corpse pose, being with what will inevitably come, I think can really make us appreciate what is right now and like where we are right now, and just to help us really take it in.
Do you want to tell us about your experiences?
Yeah. So when I was 8, my father passed away. He had a brain aneurysm that ruptured, and it was so sudden. I mean, completely, you know, unexpected. One of those just, whoa, life just hits you. And yeah, and then when I was 23, my brother, who was 27 at the time, he committed suicide. And that was another, you know, just
heartbreak.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, I'm always speechless when, and I'm only just getting to the point where I can even, like you see, like I can finally like say it out loud.
Yeah.
And I think it's important too, because, and I like, you know, for so many years, I wished I could speak about it more because there's not enough awareness about it. And I think
about suicide.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's changing, but especially when I think of myself and I think of,
you don't have to be sorry,
you know,
at all.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But
editor, please delete that part. No.
But when I think about how people view my life or the things that we see from people, you know, from looking at me in a class or me on Instagram or what you get of me, there's like this whole part of me you don't see, and I try and share, but
it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone, but it's also like you have to know that side of the story because everybody has their stuff and every life is challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's something to be said for the life you created that is beautiful, that is full of flow and full of ambition and full of love and gratitude. And I don't think it's void of the depth of pain. Like,
I think it's the pain that brought me to where I am. And it's the practice. So like I started practicing yoga after I lost my brother. I was in therapy for, you know, grief and trauma. And one day I mean, that phase of my life, I was 23. All my friends were just like at the bar, you know, like they were so, everything
23.
was 23. Like I had my now husband, and he was just such a rock through it all. But,
wow.
You know, it was so hard to relate to anyone. And I was so isolated, and I had so many people around me, but I still felt so alone, you know? And one day I just like wandered into a yoga studio. It was like the middle of the workday. I had a whole corporate career before yoga. And I wandered into a yoga studio, and it was like the first moment I felt, okay, like maybe there could be like some semblance of peace or something again. And so that is what like kept me going back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because my therapist, like a year into doing yoga and therapy and everything, and she was like, you know, I think you found what's healing you. Like I've seen such a shift, and I felt it too. And it was so easy to know that that was like a life calling, right? To like experience such profound pain, and then feeling like the pieces are starting to come together through this yoga thing. And so I kept doing it, and then I took a sabbatical and, you know, shifted my whole life around to teach it. But the thing is, it started as a practice healing my pain. And I think 8-9 years down the road, I realized it's like, it was the practice that really opened me up to feeling what joy is. So like as present in, you know, pain and moving through it and being with it, the practice then shifted to giving me that same level of awareness in my joy and the good things in life, which is truly, now when I think about it, I'm like, that is the gift.
I mean, it is courageous, actually, of you. Don't you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it's courageous or just I honestly feel like it's something. I don't know why I walked into that studio. I think it was like, it's like that. It was like a thing. It was meant to be. I just followed what was meant to be.
So beautiful. There's such a sort of, I don't know, a lioness quality about you that I've always felt.
I feel that way about you.
Oh, well, thanks. Just this like this quiet strength, this feminine edge. And I wonder if you've always had it or if your life experience and your practice is what's cultivating that in you.
It's so hard to say because I think when I really think about my life, I've always had this like loneliness, to be honest, like this. And so like maybe I am just like this. I've been a lone wolf is what I would call it. And I think it's truly goes down. I don't know if I felt this way before I lost my dad because it's hard to remember before 8 really. And especially when you have something like that happen in your life, your memories get all kind of effed up and it's like,
well, that's worth mentioning. Like when there is such a profound trauma in the middle of your brain forming,
yeah,
your memories really do get effed up.
Yeah.
Like,
and
was that a dream? Was that a...
Yeah. And I think, you know, what I mentioned about being 23 and feeling so isolated from my friends who were doing normal 23-year-old things, I obviously experienced that at 8, you know,
Which is why it was also so earth-shattering.
Yeah. And I think at 8, you can't even understand why you feel different. You don't even know you feel different.
That's just who you are.
That's just who you are. So I think I've just grown up with this isolated feeling, and I never really accepted it probably until recent years where I've been like, yeah, I am just, you know, I've always felt a little bit on the outside of things, and it's because I couldn't like lean into that innocent joy, that worryless joy. And that's what this practice is now kind of teaching me to do. Like that's the chapter I'm in right now, like opening myself up to joy without that fear or worry, or at least compartmentalizing the fear or worry so I can just soak in the joy.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you. Holy shit.
I'm proud of myself. Like I am.
And you're a beautiful community member. Like first of all, thank you for inviting me to your like big celebratory party.
Goodness.
I felt so honored. I felt like, interestingly, I know you feel lonely and like a lone wolf, but I think leaders do often. And like thinkers do.
Yeah.
You know, I think you offer the world something special, and part of that is that you are on the outside in a way.
Yeah.
But you are on the inside too, like your relationship with Neha, who I know is going to be listening to this. She was our first guest here on the Mom Curious podcast. She's the matriarch of Mother Untitled. But your relationship with her, and also, by the way, Me Too, who's your cousin,
which is
and one
so
of my
wild.
dearest friends. I don't know. I've always felt like a sort of sisterly feeling towards you in that way.
Yeah,
just you know my sisters.
We have family.
We have family in common. But you are a beautiful community member, as well as a leader, and a leader of your family. And I feel like you have transcended that experience in a way. I mean, who knows? But you've transcended that experience and managed to really connect to your children. I'd love to talk about that. Like the experience of motherhood and opening yourself up. That is the most vulnerable. It is so joyful. And in that joy, I could just, in that joy, there's just so much at stake.
Yeah.
I find it so courageous.
It is, I think, motherhood. I really, I don't even know where to start, but I am shocked at who I am as a mother. I really didn't expect to, this is going to sound bad, but I didn't expect to love it the way that I love it.
Doesn't sound bad at all.
But I think experiencing life through children's eyes is exactly what I needed to just be able to understand that joy again, So seeing it and being in it it's been a catalyst in actually my practice, even it's my motivation for my practice right now, so I can show up with presence and as best I can for my children in the challenging moments. And I think, like we were saying earlier, my motto is the way you move and breathe in your practice is the way you move and breathe in your life. And when you have tools on your mat of how to like take a beat before you react, you have the tools in your life. And whether or not you always use them is another thing, but you have something, and I see this like seamlessness at times. And a lot of my meditations and stuff are inspired by moments with my kids. Like one of the things, like the thing that I look forward to the most in my life is picking up my son from school. And like I've shifted my whole like life and schedule so that I can be there most of the days to pick him up, because that like to receive that joy, it's such an honor. And I know that it's a privilege that I get to do it. And I just, there was one day that it was like early on in his daycare life, and I had like a stupid email. And I was like, I would literally wait all day to see this little Joy run down the hall and give me that running hug. And I was answering the stupid email and I missed it. Like I missed when he ran down the hall. And I was so mad at myself. And I've got stuff with that too. Like I just feel such a need and guilt to be there for every moment, because I know like,
how fleeting.
How fleeting it is. And I think like my childhood loss affects that too. And so I have to like separate, but that I was so hard on myself about missing that one day that I started this thing that when I walk every day to pick him up, I literally do a meditation where I'm closing out like files in my head.
Okay, so let's do that meditation, okay?
Okay.
And we can bring people to this place. We'll leave a note under the show notes just so that they have this available to them on their way to pick up their kid or do something that's important to them. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So wherever you are, whether you're standing, walking, sitting, take a moment to connect to your breath. And feel the entry point of air, your nostrils, and feel the air around you trickle in through your nose. And imagine it going up the front of the skull, over the top of the head, and then down the base of the skull into the belly. And as you breathe into the belly, feel the breath go wide across the ribs. And continue to slow the pace of your breath so you can really absorb it. Feeling the rise and fall of the belly. And taking in the way your breath can anchor you right where you are. As you slow the pace of your breath, your body signals to your brain that everything's okay. And so keep the gentle pace of breathing. And as thoughts come in, as the to-dos and the endless chatter of the mind comes in, instead of trying to push or shove the thoughts away, see each thought exactly as it is, and just put it in an envelope, close it up, and stash it away. Or if you can relate more to filing it, right, almost email style, imagine each of the thoughts, you acknowledge it, and you place it where it needs to go. It's not right now. Your breath is right now. Again and again. Stashing it away for its time and place, and giving yourself permission, right, to let these thoughts flow. They can come in, but they can also go out. Because your humanness is rooted in these seeds that come in and out. A couple more breaths to place things where they need to be. And whether your eyes are open or closed, give your mind a second to prepare to come out of this meditation. So think about where you are and where you'll be. And go ahead, crack the eyes open if they were closed. Take in the space around you and give your brain a moment to receive.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sitting with me.
So you don't want to miss anything with your kids, but you also are creating a pretty beautiful life for yourself. You know,
Trying.
You have this
Trying.
gorgeous partnership. He's been there with you since
through it all.
Before the before time.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
And you have wild ambition. I mean, I was at that launch party with you for you, and you mentioned how you've wanted to be a part of Melissa Wood Health since almost its inception.
Yeah. As soon as she brought on other creators, I saw it. It wasn't even like I wanted to be a part of it. No, I obviously wanted to be a part of it, but I just knew that that's where I should teach. Because I was looking to take my teaching online. And that's a whole nother, like, just figuring out how to do what I love as a mom has been a journey, because I love teaching. It is my life calling. I know I can feel it in my bones. But the reality of teaching at studios and childcare and just the timing of classes is really hard to juggle.
Yeah.
The classes, the good times for classes are the mornings and the evenings. And I don't want to miss getting my babies out of bed. And I don't want to miss putting them to bed, because I think these are the years where they really need me. I know when they're older, they're going to be more independent. And so I really want to just be there, and it felt like I couldn't be. And then there's the whole, it's hard. I don't want to miss the weekends either, because that's the only time we have as the four of us. And for a while I was like, maybe I'm just not ambitious enough in what I want to do. If my children are, I felt like I couldn't coexist as like the mother I wanted to be and the teacher I wanted to be. And so and in a few different ways, I've been like, how else can I do and share yoga? And that's where writing came in, because it could be remote. And I was like, well, I can teach yoga through writing. And so that's where Yoga Journal started. And just finding different ways to do yoga has been huge. And during the pandemic, I taught online through my studio, and I enjoyed teaching online. So after I sort of was seeking out, because you can pre-record and, I can do it during the school day and be a little bit more present. And so I'm so grateful to have found my way to MWH. And it's just,
it's a perfect fit.
It's literally, I tear up just thinking about how grateful I am to have been able to still do what I love and be there for my kids. It's like
That's of all the things, of all the things to make you tear up like that.
Oh.
Just the gratitude.
Yes, I'm just.
The joy. Wow. I know people always apologize for crying.
I know.
But
Why
the
do
truth
we?
is,
I just cry.
It's the most beautiful expression. Also because it's like the joy. Like,
I
look
know,
how
this is
important.
this is a gratitude cry.
This is the gratitude cry? Oh my God.
That's what's wild. You know, there's so many things to cry about. And when you get a gratitude cry, you just have to be like, whoa, like, thank you for this. I'm grateful for oh gosh.
I'm grateful for the gratitude cry. Yeah, I remember.
Cringe.
So when we were at, our friend Neha's New Year's event, you also welled up with tears just because she... Well, because Neha of Mother Untitled really champions the stay-at-home mother and the mothering experience, the importance of mothering and the joy of mothering and the day in and day out labor of mothering, and really just shedding a light on how it doesn't take away our ambition and our drive and who we are. And it's really made a huge impact on your life.
Huge. Oh no, I'm gonna cry more. But if it weren't
from gratitude,
yes, honestly, if it weren't for Neha and what she has done, I wouldn't feel so empowered in my place as a mother, and I don't think I would have been motivated to figure out how to really just carve out exactly what I want in my life. I wouldn't have believed it existed. I don't know if I would have believed in myself. And yeah, I mean, profoundly grateful. And, she's just shifted the perspective for me of like, oh, I don't know. Before I had kids, I thought I was going to just be like still grinding and like working really hard and I still am working so hard. But I mean, like, I imagined myself in a structure of like leaving my children all day. Yeah. And then once I had kids, I was like, oh, I cannot leave them all day. And to understand that there is a format, which sometimes I'm like, this feels so hard trying to do both so much. But there is a format and people figure it out, but it takes work and a lot of honesty with yourself about what you want. And I think she's really challenged women to think about that and to embrace it when you love it. And yeah, grateful.
And Melissa Wood, I got to give it to her. I mean, she has taken caring for yourself into an art form, into a business. She's really incredible. And I'm so glad that you guys get to work together because she also loves motherhood. Yeah. It's really shout out to Melissa Wood.
Yes, huge shout out. I mean, I can't even. I'm definitely going to cry if I start talking about her because I think that she has shifted so much in the conversation of what it means to take care of yourself and feel good about yourself. And I think the reason I was so drawn to her online platform is I feel so connected to, what they bring in terms of what we bring, I should say, in terms of it doesn't have to be like this hour long, like, daily, like you can commit to yourself in 10 minutes a day. You can commit to yourself for 20 minutes a day to make it possible to keep up that commitment. And that's where, before my kids, I was 1 hour, 90-minute classes every day at the studio. And I was scared of losing that piece of myself. And now I'm more connected to myself than I ever was in that 1 hour, 90-minute phase of practice by practicing, 20 minutes a day, or 40 minutes a day.
I mean, I have to give it to Melissa because I know that there were other platforms around that, but it was like, she said it out loud, like moms just don't have an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then the shower after and the commute back and forth. And, there are women who are claiming a new path. And I think part of part of this like feminine edge that I feel from you is that like there's an acceptance with you, with Neha, with Melissa, of being a woman and having, you know, children and a desire to be in the world in a way that is meaningful without being a man.
Yeah.
It's like it's the next step in our feminist plight.
It's a different kind of power, right? Like the boss babe talk is kind of shifted, I think, to like I think there's a softer feminine energy that needs to be shown as power.
Yeah.
Like it is powerful to be vulnerable. It is powerful to be soft. It is, you know, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a hard ass, like, you know, CEO to still be like this power woman.
But you do have discipline, you know.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
You have such discipline. You rip yourself out of bed every morning.
Yeah. And I'm a strict mom.
You are? Tell me more about that.
I'm a strict mom.
It's good for them.
I create the bound. I should say I create boundaries. Like I'm the boundary setter and the boundary keeper in our household and anything like when it comes to food and all that stuff. Like I'm a pretty like, and it's not like my kids, I give them lots of options, but when it comes to eating, if they're not eating what's on the menu, like that's what's on the menu.
Good for you.
Like I'm one of those.
I love that.
And there have been times where like I feel really bad but I've done the research and like, you know, I always have, there's always a safety. Like I know there's one thing they will eat at every meal.
They're not going to starve.
And I want them to feel, I don't know. Food is so hard with kids. But
food is hard with kids, but it's also like you're in charge. And I think that's a really important message for children in a way that I don't, you know, I've been touting gentle parenting for a long time, but gentle and firm, you know, in the same way that we talk about, you know, your yoga practice. There is a discipline to getting on the mat. We are 100%. Creating strength. We are opening ourselves. It is a flow. And yet we have to to show up.
Yes.
And not just to the mat itself. We have to show up to the, you know, to the edge of the pose. And I want that for my children in a way that I didn't always exercise before. But, you know, if you don't want, you know, the meat or the burger or the fish, so don't eat it.
Yeah.
But we have to sit with some discomfort and some disappointment. And also that's healthy.
Yes. Wow. I'm seeing, you know, you just like had a light bulb went off because it's all the same. And this life on the mat, life off the mat, it's all the same. It's like and it almost goes with the stigma that like yoga is flexibility and like yoga has like a softer reputation than like, you know, if you were to go to Barry's class or something. Sure. Like, you know, and then it's also like life is like that too. Like even though yoga is maybe a gentler quote unquote practice, there's so much like the discipline of yoga requires so much commitment, and people don't know the half of what yoga really is. Like asana, the physical practice, is truly like one small part. Like there's so much more. There's so much philosophy and so much framework around the way, you know, you're supposed to act on a day-to-day basis. And
oh, really?
Yes, to be a student of yoga requires a lot of commitment and a lot of study. And I think that this like dynamic of like commitment and strength while also like staying fluid and flow in the practice applies to life, applies to motherhood, like setting the boundaries. And I'm like all about gentle parenting, but I set the boundaries. But then like I do the, you know, like I give space for the feelings. And, you know, I think it's such an interesting dynamic of like, you have to put a container around the fluidity almost.
Yeah. I think it's really important, like you say, on the mat and off.
Yeah.
I want to touch on some of your study, actually, because there are a lot of people who teach yoga and they teach it beautifully.
Yes.
But I do wonder, is there a part of you that feels more connected as a woman of Indian descent?
Yes. Oh, this is so... yes, I grew up in such a predominantly just white environment. I was the only like Indian in all my friend groups, and I didn't have I wasn't very connected to my culture from an early age on. I had my family and we had lots of like Indian parties and all this stuff, but I personally I was like a little bit embarrassed growing up.
Oh wow.
And yoga actually is what like took me back to my culture. Like it really, it was the first time I felt like, wow, this is so cool. I am a part of this. This is a part of me. This is in me. This is from my, like, it's what lit me up about, and now I'm prouder than ever. I've never felt so proud of my culture as I do now, but it took like this journey into yoga, and I just, yeah. And now I do feel more connected, but I don't know. I can't speak to what somebody else feels teaching it. But what's interesting is I don't think I have more of a, so I'm Sikh. Sikh religion is different than Hinduism, and a lot of yoga is technically comes from Hinduism, and there's a lot of debate over that. So this might get controversial on your podcast, but
but once they brought it to the West, it changed.
Yes,
it did change it, and what you teach is actually a Westernized
yoga, and that's
what's
beautiful. Interesting because I'm like I've only studied yoga through the lens of the West. Like I'm always looking for teachers who studied with like Iyengar and Tabi Joyce, and like trying to get back to more of the roots, which is something,
it's a spiritual practice.
Yes, but because yoga, when there's chanting, when there's mantra, it all comes from Hindu descent. I almost feel like it's like I'm not more entitled to teach it than anybody else. Like it's not mine either, It's not any more mine than anyone else's. And so I don't know. It connected me back to my culture in this beautiful way where I have an appreciation for the just like the way the words sound and that and where it came from, like just seeing and going to India and seeing that yoga is truly just in the nature of the people is an interesting, there's just so I feel that there's so much more. The word yoga means unity, and I think that the way you get treated by people like in India, like they just want you to come into their home and drink chai. Like everybody's just, there's more of this like connectedness, I think, when you go to India than anywhere else in the world I've felt. And so I just think yoga's immersed, whether people have done the yoga or not, it's just there.
Yeah, it's like such a part of their everyday
life.
Because also yoga, I think the word doesn't necessarily mean asana, right?
No, yeah.
It doesn't mean the physical practice. There are many branches of yoga.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's so
I just went on a
beautiful.
runoff. I just ran with that. Sorry, I forget where we even started.
I know, because it was so exciting. I love it. I love when I see you in your more traditional, like headpieces. And it's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's
yes,
so
I
beautiful.
love. If I could wear Indian clothes all the time,
really,
I really just maybe I mean I wear a lot of sari tops with like I try and mix it up, but yeah, it's what I also feel my best in. Like if I had to wear, if you were telling me I had like the most important, thing of my life and I had to feel like my best self, I would put on an Indian outfit and like the whole thing, the whole shebang.
The whole shebang is really good.
The whole shebang is so fun.
I also feel, by the way, like with all of my South Asian friends, I feel like they just want to sit down and have chai. Like, I feel like even here in the States, like that culture has really, it's so strong that it's so present with me too, with Neha. I mean, we've shouted out Neha so many times.
I know.
By the way,
we just need her here, I think.
Wow, it's nice to be with you.
Yes. and with you.
You said something early on that I don't want to gloss over, which you said that there's like not enough information around suicide. And I wonder, there's a world full of people who aren't talking about it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to let the hour go by without giving you the literal mic,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of information if you go looking for it. I think there's still a lot of stigma. And that is, I had always thought of it as, I remember being younger than when it happened and thinking like, how could anybody let that happen in their family? Like, how could you not know that was going to happen? Like, I don't even know why I had those thoughts, but maybe it was like a
No, people have those
premonition.
thoughts.
And it's like, why? Like, how could those families are bad? Like, I'm just gonna say, like, like those families have something messed up going on. How could they not know? And then it happened to my family, and I grew up in such a loving environment, and so I think, and that's why it's taken me so long to deconstruct and just my own stigma about it's still there even, and
like an embarrassment or a shame on you.
Well, there is like a guilt, like I should have known.
No.
Or you can go back, like I could go back and be like, oh, I had this hunch that something, like I could do that, but I don't, because that's torture and that's not healthy. But it's just hard to talk about, I think, because when I talk about it, I feel so vulnerable because it's just so backwards to anything I ever expected to happen. And then it just feels like, I think there's a lot of I don't want to make people uncomfortable either. I've always been, for a long time, people pleaser. That's also connected to my childhood loss, to be honest, when you're overcompensating. But yeah, so I think that not necessarily information. I think it just needs to become more of part of the mainstream conversation. And
that's why we have this show, because there are so many things in life like miscarriages or infertility or being a gay parent or, black, maternal health. There are so many things. Suicide.
Yeah.
There are things that we just tuck away in our society. And I thank God for being American, and I'm happy to be a first generation American. But if I can do anything in this work, it's just to say this is the human experience.
Yeah.
And it includes these things. And the fact that you have the strength and integrity and just open-heartedness to let us in on that experience. I think there's probably someone listening who's that happened in my family too.
Yeah.
And this burden of shame is too heavy.
Yeah. And I think the more I share about loss and grief, when I share on Instagram, the amount of people that reach out to me and just say thank you, this helped, or something along those lines, it really makes me see how much people need to feel less alone in these experiences.
Yeah.
So when I put something out there, or even just talking about it here, it's not just about, it's not awareness. It's making people feel less alone in whatever they're facing in their lives too. Because when you face the unimaginable, you think it could only, you're the only one. It's that loneliness, that same loneliness,
Yeah.
And every little bit of not feeling alone is just so helpful,
Yeah. I really appreciate you. And, yoga is pretty vulnerable, actually. For me, used to practice all the time and I was fit. I was like really fit. And then I stopped. And I think if there's one thing you could say to the person who's getting back on the mat, who doesn't want to wake up at 5:30, but maybe has to because life is lifing, what would you say as a bit of encouragement? And when I say to them, I'm using air quotes because you're talking to her.
I think start small. I think that when we try and build these practices, a lot of times we're like, okay, I'm gonna do yoga every day. It's gonna be a 30-minute practice every single day. And maybe that doesn't sound like a lot to a lot of people, but 30 minutes is a lot of time. Like start with 10, 15, especially if it's like meditation. Like I started a meditation practice with 2 minutes a day. And then that grew. But I think when we go too high with our ambitions, it's really hard to stay committed, and then we just fall off. And it's like you can feel a shift in 10 minutes, especially when you do it consistently. And I think, yeah, that's what I would say. I would say starting small, something like manageable, and being open to the fact that you and your body and your heart and your soul are changing, and the practice that suited you 10 years ago might not suit you anymore, but that doesn't mean you give up on your practice and you change it. Like you grow with it. You do something a little bit different. You try something new, a different teacher, but the practice is meant to make you grow. And so if you're feeling like you outgrew it, you're doing something right. You just have to evolve too.
And you're not alone because you have Neeti on your
evolving
on your
along
device.
Yes.
And your many devices
On every device.
Yeah. Where do we find you? And if I've missed anything, would you?
Well, I just want to say thank you for this conversation and for having me and for creating space for me to share. It's a lot, and everything you're doing to change the way people feel about what they're going through and about what we can talk about, so to speak, is really profound. And the way that you open people up and the way that you share is so it's really, you share in this way that doesn't make people feel bad.
Oh, thanks.
I don't know what the word is for that, but do you know what I mean? Like when you put something out there, even if you're trying to when you're getting your point across, you never make me feel bad about like the opposite or you have a gift.
So grateful for that
And
reflection.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, so you can find me back to what you asked me. You can find me online at Melissa Wood Health. I have meditation and yoga practices ranging from 5 minutes to 45 minutes. So wherever you're looking to dip your toe in, there's a 7-day free trial. And then in person, I'm at Moto Yoga NYC on a weekly basis.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right now I'm on a little bit of I'll be back the end of the month, but
that's so cool. And you're at Neeti Nerula?
Yeah, Neeti.Narula.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're welcome, friends. And if you want, you can always go back to that meditation. Eyes open is totally cool, right?
Yes.
I hear actually eyes open can be more effective for your nervous system.
Yeah, actually from a trauma-informed perspective, not to go all nerdy on you, but trauma-informed perspective, eyes can make the brain feel safer if you keep a soft and steady gaze, especially if you've experienced like trauma, because then you can see the space around you and it can sort of settle your mind. But you have to keep a soft, steady gaze.
Okay, cool. And if you do come back to listen to Neeti's meditation, I will be. Let us know. Drop us a line. I'm at Daniela Rabbani. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful for this time. It felt really
so grateful. I cried 5 times.
But the big one was a gratitude cry. So I'm feeling like it was a win.
It was a win.
Thank you, as always, for listening to the Mom Curious podcast. My name is Daniela Rabbani. I am your host, and I would love to continue this conversation at Daniela Rabbani on Instagram. And if you'd be so kind to rate and review, share this podcast, I would be just really grateful. Catch you next time, every Tuesday on the Mom Curious podcast, produced by Hoff Studios. You can find them at Hoff Studios on Instagram as well. All right, have a great day.